everyone. I'm Dr. Megan McNeal. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist. Over the years, I've repeatedly gotten the question, how do I become a forensic psychologist? What do you need to do? Well, there's the obvious. There are a lot of years of study. There's undergrad, graduate school, there's internship, there's residency hours, there's passing the EPPP, which is a very sizable exam, and then getting licensed in your state or multiple states before you can do this work. You have to be willing to work hard academically, and that doesn't stop. All through your career, there will be reviewing records, writing reports, preparing for testimony, looking at research, and you have to be willing to work sometimes late into the night to meet a deadline. But there are other things I did not fully appreciate until entering this field. Like, you have to be comfortable disappointing people or having an unpopular opinion. Very often, someone will disagree with your opinion in this field, whether it's opposing counsel or if you do child custody evaluations and you're deciding which parent you think the child should live with, the other parent will be pretty upset. You have to tell attorneys that your opinion about their client is not helpful to their case, and that can make attorneys frustrated with you and perhaps not want to work with you anymore. During cross-examination, you might be verbally attacked by an attorney who's trying to discredit you, and you need to not take it personally, but just to understand that this is part of the adversarial system we work in. There will be times when your peers disagree with your opinion, and they might throw you under the bus. I think that's happened to most all of us who have done this work for many years. You have to ask people uncomfortable questions and put them on the spot or challenge them, sometimes during an evaluation. And basically, you have to be comfortable making other people uncomfortable. And many of my colleagues who do clinical work don't like making other people feel uncomfortable. In a therapeutic setting, they like to validate people and work with the person to create solutions to whatever life problem they're struggling with. But in forensics, you have to be willing to put people on the spot, ask really tough questions, and then sit in silence waiting for them to answer. And that can make people really uncomfortable. You also, I believe, need to use compassion in these meetings with people. There's a lot of trauma that people talk about. There's pretty terrible, tragic consequences for long-term substance use or untreated mental illness. And being able to meet that person with compassion while you're also evaluating them can be really important. Knowing how to help a person who is raw and exposed and tearful kind of collect themselves before they have to go back to the jail cell or the jail unit where there might be 40 or 60 or 80 other people, I think is a really important ability, because it's not good to send someone back who's raw and exposed where they might be easily triggered by some other inmates on the unit, and then they might get into a fight or something. Also, I think it's important to maintain a pretty good poker face when you are meeting with defendants. There will be inevitably people who try to rattle you or get under your skin. I recently had a client try to get under my skin by telling me about the time he was in prison and set another inmate on fire. And I just had to keep a straight face and act like I hear that kind of thing every day. You have to admit when you're wrong, or you've made a mistake, or you missed some piece of information that might be relevant to your opinion, or perhaps the attorney who hired you didn't provide that particular piece of information. And that can be really embarrassing, especially when you're on the stand testifying. This work can be really depressing at times. We are constantly hearing about people's traumatic childhood or domestically violent relationships, or when people have mental illness that can't be treated with medication and they suffer every day from hearing voices or seeing things that aren't there. I believe it's important to meet people with compassion and also to try not to take the work home with you, which can be really challenging. I admit there have been times when I cried while driving home after spending hours in a jail, hearing someone talk about their childhood trauma. This work can also be lonely because even though we're constantly meeting with people to do evaluations, it's very one-sided. We are actively listening and assessing what's going on with the person. It's not a reciprocal interaction. And when you work in a private practice setting, very often you're in your own office or you're in a jail or prison setting where you're not hanging out with your colleagues like you would if you were in a clinical setting. If you decide to do this work, I believe it's important to develop a strong support system with fellow colleagues, hopefully those who share your similar morbid sense of humor, and figure out ways to unplug from the day-to-day stress of this job, whether it's being in nature or creating art or music, exercising, playing sports, being with your family, those kinds of things. I find practicing gratitude can really help me unwind from these stressful days. I know a lot of this sounds really obvious, but if you are interested in this field, I think you should have a really honest conversation with yourself. I know of some colleagues who have done a lot of clinical work, therapy work, and they decided they would try to get into forensics, and many of them decided it wasn't for them for a lot of the reasons I talked about earlier. If you are interested in learning more about this field, subscribe to my Substack page for more information. I will be posting content regularly, and I'm open to questions, suggestions, comments about what people are interested in. I would like to develop training videos and have live interactive training sessions as I get the page more established. Thanks for watching.